Back Road Ministry of the World. I'm Mr. Marky coming back at you live and direct. Kind of rare I do two videos in a day, but something has been bugging me. And, we talked about the petrodollar, the potential end to the petrodollar, Trump being the trumpet in Revelation, kind of the end of certain regimes would come. There would be a change or a new world order, and sometimes the new world order is the old world order returning. And I'm really thinking through how Donald Trump, and when Trump talks, he does say a lot of crazy stuff, but I don't really listen to a lot of the crazy stuff. I listen to what he's really saying. And if you've really been paying attention, he's just returned to this fixation about gold. He's got the gold drapes behind him and the gold ballroom, and it's everything's been about gold. Everything. And remember, before Nixon in the 70s, before Nixon goes to China, he decides to end the gold standard and create the petrodollar, meaning you can't buy oil without dollars. For some reason, I feel that Trump is about to go away from it. I don't think he wants the petrodollar. And I've been having conversation with people and, listening to a lot of the world media, a lot of people who are very well versed in finance and GDPs. I don't think Trump wants the petrodollar anymore. I think we're about to see the end of the petrodollar and the return to the gold standard. So, back in his first term, Trump had spoken highly. This is a report from, it's got the name of this article. Let me pull up this article for everybody. Investing News Network. Also, Forbes spoke about it. The signs are there. The gold standard is coming back. And let's look at Forbes. That's the money magazine. Come on, Forbes. Yeah, we can't get Forbes. But we'll look at this article. It says President Donald Trump has spoken highly of the gold standard, but could he really bring it back? The gold standard hasn't been used in the U.S. since the 1970s, but during Donald Trump's first term, there was some speculation that he could bring it back. Rumors that the gold standard could be reinstated during Trump's presidency centered largely on positive comments he made about the idea. Notably, he suggested that it would be wonderful to bring back the gold standard, and a number of his advisors, of course, agreed. Now that Trump is in the White House, some are again wondering if he will turn to the country to the gold standard. Speaking on his War Room podcast, this is in 2023, Steve Bannon spoke about this. Trump's former chief strategist said he believes the president could ditch the U.S. Federal Reserve, which Trump hates. We all know that Trump can't stand the Federal Reserve and the people that run it, and bring back the gold standard in his second term. The Project 2025 folks, the Heritage Foundation, they proposed a blueprint for Trump's second term and mentioned the option of eliminating the Federal Reserve to make way for the return of the gold standard. While Trump has publicly disavowed Project 2025, and there's a lot of stuff in Project 2025 we spoke about that was well in place during the Democrats' time, one being how Medicaid created the Advantage Care plans and some other things. So it's not a Republican plan. It was already some stuff placed in, put in place by the New World Order architects. It creates say he is privately supported. His creators say, Project 25, its creators say he is privately supportive of the initiative and he has implemented many of their suggestions. Additionally, the chapter's author, Paul Renfrey, is a former member of Trump's 2016 transition team. Since re-entering office, Trump has also shown interest in physical gold stored in Fort Knox. Remember now, we have a lot of gold in Fort Knox, and that's not the biggest stash of gold. If you remember the movie Die Hard 3, they tell you where the biggest stash of gold in America is. The president, Elon Musk, had repeatedly questioned whether some of the gold may have been stolen, and Musk has suggested an audit of the 147 million ounces of gold stored in vault. It remains to be seen whether the audit will take place, which I think it is going to take place. So, for those that don't know, the gold standard, how does it work? Put simply, the gold standard is a monetary system in which the value of the country's currency is directly linked to the yellow metal. Countries using the gold standard set a fixed price at which to buy and sell gold to determine the value of the nation's currency. For example, if the U.S. went back to the gold standard and set the price of gold at $1,000 $1,000 per ounce, the value of the dollar would be one and 100th of an ounce of gold. This would after reliable price stability. Under the gold standard, the transactions no longer have to be done with heavy gold bullion or gold coins. The gold standard also increases the trust needed for successful global trade. This idea that paper currency has value that is tied to something real. The goal is to prevent inflation as well as deflation and to help promote a stable monetary environment. So, really, the New World Order will change things back to what we like to call using elements of the old world order to create this new balance, but we still don't know how this is going to look. Remember, these people are very sick and twisted. So, right now, currently, no countries use the gold standard. Decades ago, governments abandoned the gold standard in favor of fiat monetary systems. However, countries around the world do still hold gold reserves in their central banks. The Fed is the central bank of the U.S., and as of February 2025, the gold reserves came to 8,133.46 metric tons of just gold alone. So we got a lot of gold that we can kind of trade. Got a lot of gold that we can trade. Abandonment. The demise of the gold standard began as World War II was ending. At that time, the leading Western powers met to develop the Bretton Woods Agreement, which became the framework for global currency markets until 1971. The Bretton Woods Agreement was born in the UN Monetary and Financial Conference held in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in July 1944 to kill coal. Currencies were pegged to the price of gold, and the U.S. dollar was seen as a reserve currency linked to the price of gold. This meant all national currency was valued in relation to the U.S. dollar, since it had become the dominant reserve currency. And that's at the time when it was dominant. Now when you're talking about the yuan and other things like that, do you want to move away and go into a different situation? So, 1971, President Richard Nixon had called for a temporary suspension of the dollar's convertibility. So, this is 71, so 81, 91, 2001, 2011, 2021. That's 50 years. And we talk about 26 years. Well, 21, that's 50 years. So 55 years ago, 55 years ago to this day is when the Nixon ended the gold standard. So since the 1970s, most countries have run on the system of fiat money, which is government issued money that is not backed by a commodity. The U.S. dollar is fiat money, which means it is backed by the government, but not by any physical asset. So I couldn't take my dollars and say, hey, I got $2,000. I want $2,000 for gold to back up my money. I can't do that. All right. Trump said, while it's perhaps not common knowledge, Trump has long been a fan of gold, which he's talking about a great deal with his golden ballroom. We got Mike Johnson making a statement about, yeah, we're going into a golden era, and then he quickly reverts his, yeah, we're going into a gold standard, a new golden era. So, they're kind of hint. But to get there, you got to kill something. And remember, these are the order out of chaos boys. How do you get back to the gold standard? How do you defunct the Federal Reserve? You got to kill the petrodollar. You got to kill the petrodollar. So Trump said bringing back the gold standard would be very hard to do, but boy, would it be wonderful. We've had a standard on which to base our money. In a separate interview that year, he said, we used to have a very, very solid country because it was based on the gold standard. So Trump is hint, 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 hint. Make America great again. So it was great before we went to the petrodollar. And I said, a lot of things Trump is doing is really telling me he never liked the petrodollar. I think he dealt with the petrodollar, but he never liked the idea of the petrodollar because if the dollar goes, what do you trade? Gold, silver, these have always been tradable commodities for centuries. So why don't we turn to things that if the dollar's not there, I can have some gold in my house, I can have some silver in my house, and if things get tight, I still got something that can be traded and utilized to buy things because it still has value. So pros and cons of return to the gold standard of other commodity-backed monetary system. Paul Winfrey raised several monetary reforms options, listing the gold standard as the second most effective option against inflation and boom bust recessionary cycles. Project 2025 aims to severely reduce the current powers of the Federal Reserve, including its ability to purchase federal debt and other financial assets, as well as bail out big financial institutions, if they really do that. I don't think they're going against the rich boys. So, on the more extreme end, the policy playbook also explores dismantling the Federal Reserve in favor of the gold standard alone. In the view of Project 25, this would reduce the risk of inflation because there would be no central bank to print money and bail out the banks. On the other hand, Winfrey states that the 2-year election system means they should be cautious about causing too much disruption to financial markets and economy. While the Trump administration 2.0 has yet to implement any of the Project 25 recommendations on the Federal Reserve discussed above, the president did sign an executive order in mid-February that would give him the executive branch oversight and control of regulatory agencies like the Fed. However, the order does provide an exemption for the central bank's ability to set interest rates. Okay. So, there's a lot in this article if you want to read it. Is there enough gold to return to the gold standard? The fact that the U.S. doesn't have enough gold in its reserve to pay back all its debt poses a huge roadblock to returning to the gold standard. The country would have to exponentially replenish its gold reserve in advance of any return to the gold standard. The United States holds around 261.5 million troy ounces of gold, valued at approximately $489 billion. The total U.S. money supply exceeds $20 trillion. We are really in debt, necessitating about 272,430 metric tons of gold at current market prices, explains Rod DeWitt. Well, the supply remains insufficient, even including global gold stocks, which total around $212,502 metric tons. In addition, it's understood that returning to the gold standard would require the price of gold to be set much higher than it is currently. What would the price of gold need to be worth if the U.S. returned to the gold standard? Financial analyst and investment banker Jim Richards has calculated the gold price would need to jump up to at least $27,000 an ounce. This means the U.S. dollar will be severely devalued, causing inflation, and since global trade uses the U.S. dollar as reserve currency, it would grind to a halt. Conversely, returning to the gold standard at a low gold price would cause deflation. So, what would silver be worth to the U.S. returning to the gold standard? It's not guaranteed that silver would follow in gold's footsteps. If a gold standard were reestablished due to many industrial and technological applications, while silver has a long history of precious metal and played an important role as currency for much of human history, its value today is intrinsically linked to that demand as well. And one last thing. Returning to the gold standard would have a huge impact on levels of the U.S. economy and make it impossible for the Fed to offer fiscal stimulus. After all, if the U.S. had to have enough gold reserves to exchange for dollars on an as needed basis, the Fed's ability to print paper currency would be incredibly limited. So, Pelosi believed that could be the perfect way to get the U.S. out of debt, but it will also cause problems during times of economic crisis. It's important to remember that because 70% of the U.S. economy is based on consumer spending, if inflation rolls due to gold price rising, then a lot of consumers would cut spending. But right now, we are already in a time of inflation, heavy inflation, due to the petrodollar. So it's not like, inflation has not been an issue. So, as can be seen, returning to the gold standard would be complex ordeal with pros and cons. The likelihood of the U.S. bringing back the gold standard is slim, but no doubt the question will continue to be up for debate under future presidents. Okay? So, this is where we at. And there's a lot of hint going on. And we read a lot of this. But I just want to bring this to everybody's attention because of all the hint that was going on at press conferences about this gold ballroom. And it keeps being the topic, oh, the golden ballroom, and we got these golden curtains. Right now, the petrodollar is in trouble. The yuan is going to be traded in the Arab countries for oil in that part of the country. People are not going to be trading dollars anymore. So we're seeing the end of the petrodollar in a way. And could we be moving back to the gold standard? Is that what Trump means by making America great again? But how is he going to get his hand on all this gold? That's the thing. Who's got the gold? So I think this next push and these next wars are going back to a time of colonization in a way where gold mines are going to be looted. So do the Venezuelans have a lot of gold? Do the Venezuelans have a lot of gold? Who are you going to go in these deals with to mine gold? Because you're going to need more gold than we have to get out of the debt or even match and be able to pay back the debt that we have. And who are we paying this debt to is also the other thing. Who do we owe these debts to? So definitely look at what could be going down the pipe. If you got gold, I know a lot of my Eastern European friends, they keep gold, they keep silver. Hey, if you got it, keep it because we could be returning this gold standard. And we could be seeing the sabotage purposely of the Federal Reserve in a war that Trump knew he couldn't win, knew that it would threaten the petrodollar if the Straits of Hormuz were shut down, and knew that it would force the world to go to a new economy away from the U.S. dollar. Meaning, does this open the door for him to say, well, since everybody doesn't want to deal in dollars anymore, we just go back to the gold standards and we're going to back our dollars up with gold. Who's got gold? Who's got gold? Because now we're going to back our dollars up with gold instead of trading bonds. So if you got gold, we'll back our dollars up with gold. Yet, like it said, they got to have that much gold to be able to back up that much money. So definitely do some more research on the gold standard. Could we be returning? This was March 11, 2025. This article I read. We're a year after this, and we're stuck in this war where the petrodollar is being threatened. Where are we headed? Mr. Maki, Back Row Ministry, Peace and Health, Drees. Do some research.